You know that feeling, right? You reach for your coffee, you decide to turn left instead of right. You feel like you're in the driver's seat of your own body. It's pretty much the most basic part of being human. But what if that feeling of being in control is just a story your brain tells itself after the decision has already been made? Yeah, let's get into that.
And look, this isn't just some abstract philosophical thought experiment. It's a real question that comes out of some pretty famous neuroscience. I mean, what if scientists could actually see your brain getting ready to do something hundreds of milliseconds before you even feel like you've decided to do it? Kind of changes things, doesn't it?
So, to really get to the bottom of this, we have to start with the one scientific experiment that pretty much kicked this whole hornet's nest wide open.
So back in the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet set up this simple but totally revolutionary experiment. He had people just flick their wrist whenever they felt the urge. Their only job was to look at a clock and remember the exact moment they felt that conscious, I'm gonna move now, feeling. All the while, he was hooked up to an EEG, measuring their brain activity. And what he found was, well, it was kind of a bombshell.
Okay, look closely at this timeline because this is where your brain's going to do a little flip. Libet found this specific brain signal, the readiness potential, which is basically the brain warming up to act. But, and this is the crazy part, that signal showed up a full 350 milliseconds before people reported feeling the conscious decision to move. Let that sink in for a second. Your brain is already starting the action way before you are even aware of deciding to act. This just throws a huge wrench in how we normally think about free will. All right, so before we go any further down that rabbit hole, let's back up and look at the way we usually think about this stuff. Philosophers call it the standard story, and it's probably how you instinctively think about your own actions every single day. At the heart of all this is the idea of agency. It sounds fancy, but it's a really simple, powerful concept. An agent is just something that can do stuff. An agency is just the doing of that stuff. You're an agent, but how does it actually work? So the standard theory is a pretty simple A to B to C story. You have a belief, like, hey, there's coffee in that cup. And you have a desire, I'd really like some coffee. Those two things combine to form an intention. I'm gonna pick up that cup. And then boom, that intention directly causes the action. It's simple, it's logical, it feels totally right. But this simple story can get really weird really fast.
So, let's see how this nice, neat story starts to, well, fall apart. Because when you look really closely at that chain reaction from intention to action, the agent, that's you, can sometimes just seem to vanish completely.
Philosophers have this awesome term for this problem, deviant causal chains. It's what happens when your intention does cause your action, but it happens in some bizarre roundabout way that doesn't feel like you were in control at all.
To get a feel for this, check out this classic thought experiment. Imagine a climber, and he's holding another climber on a rope. He makes the hard decision to let go to save his own life. That is his intention. But just forming that intention, the sheer stress of it makes his hand shake and slip, and he lets go by accident. So here's the question. Did his intention cause the action? Well, yeah, it did. But it wasn't a controlled, deliberate act, was it? And that's the whole issue right there. The intention was there, the action happened, and one caused the other. But something went seriously wrong in the middle. The action wasn't guided by the intention. It was more like an accidental side effect of it. It just doesn't feel like he was really in charge.
And this opens up a huge can of worms. If the standard story is just a series of mental dominoes, belief knocks over desire, desire knocks over intention, intention knocks over action, it seems like we've left out the most important piece of the puzzle, the agent who's supposed to be running the show. Are we just watching our own mental machinery do its thing?
So maybe the issue is that we're thinking about agency as this simple on or off switch. You either have it or you don't. Let's try zooming out and considering that maybe, just maybe, agency is more of a spectrum.
I mean, philosophers these days talk about all sorts of different kinds of agency. You've got the super minimal agency of like a bacteria moving toward food. Then you've got our complex human level agency. But there's also shared agency, like when two people work together to carry a piano. Or collective agency, like a corporation making a decision. And now we're talking about artificial agency with robots and AI.
And this makes you ask some really interesting questions about the world around you. Your dog, for example, definitely acts on the world. But is its agency the same as yours? When your phone's AI suggests the fastest route home, is that a form of agency? I mean, it's following rules and chasing a goal, but does it have an intention like we do? Seeing it as a spectrum helps us realize that control is a much slipperier concept than we think. This brings us full circle, right back to where we started, that powerful feeling of being in control.
If our conscious intention shows up late to the party and the causal chain can go haywire, then where does that feeling even come from? Well, the best scientific explanation we have right now is something called the comparator model. And the idea is that our sense of agency isn't about direct command and control, but it's actually about prediction and feedback.
So how does this actually work? Let's go back to picking up that coffee cup. Before you even twitch a muscle, your brain generates a little simulation, a prediction of what it's going to feel like, the weight of the cup, the warmth, the texture. Then, as you actually lift it, your brain compares the prediction to what's really happening. If it's a match, you get that smooth, satisfying feeling. Yep, I did that. But if the cup is way heavier than you expected, you get a mismatch signal. It's that whoa moment that disrupts your sense of smooth control.
Okay, let's tie this all together. We've seen the challenge from neuroscience, the philosophical cracks in the story we tell ourselves, and the brain's clever trick for making us feel like we're in control. So what's the bottom line? Here's the big, mind-bending takeaway. That powerful, immediate feeling of being in charge, it might not be a direct window into reality. It might actually be more of a retrospective story. Your brain looking at the evidence and making its best guess that you were the one who called the shots, even if the process was already underway. And that leaves us with a really deep question to chew on. If our sense of control is an illusion, or at least a reconstruction, and the line between an intentional act and a pure accident is this blurry, what does that mean for huge ideas like blame and praise and moral responsibility? It turns out the simple act of doing something might be one of the most complicated things we do.